Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scot MacTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
One of the things that's really difficult is that people just don't understand it, and they think it's like some super, AI is these robots, and
right?
The Terminator and all this stuff, and it's really not.
Hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday and it's the Pitchwerks podcast. Thanks for tuning in. This week, my friend Curt Wadsworth comes in to tell us about the current status of a really cool project called Dorothy AI. So Curt's a patent attorney. He knows the pain of being in that space, and here he comes to fix it himself with a team that he put together. And it's a software solution, and it's going to save people a bunch of time and money and whatnot. I'm going to get under the hood of this thing. I'm going to try to figure out how we can, take some of the bumps and pains out of the road ahead. It's the least we can do. I think it's a really cool solution. So before we jump in, I'm going to ask you to check us out on social media. All the Pitchwerks, the PITCHWERKS you can stand. That'd be Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Check us out. Interact with us. We'd love to hear from you out there on the socials. Let's talk to Curt. Let's find out what's going on with this thing he's building. Ladies and gentlemen, now here in the Epicast studios, Curt Wadsworth. He's the founder and CEO over at Dorothy AI. Curt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, as you are painfully aware, I've stumbled a couple times already trying to get the right words out of my mouth. So I don't know. This may be touch and go for a minute.
I think you'll be fine.
So Dorothy AI, tell me what you're working on specifically. You are helping patent search?
Yes. So Dorothy AI is a AI-driven patent search platform directed specifically to patent lawyers to help make the patent searching process easier.
Now, you have experience with this.
Patent searching?
Patent searching.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been a patent lawyer I've been in the patent game for 12 years.
Yeah.
So I've performed thousands of searches.
So you're one of those founders that's identified a pain because you went through it.
Many times.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. So you go and you create a product and say, I need to make this less of a pain, take less time, et cetera, et cetera. All that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. But you've been working as, like on the legal side of things, and now all of a sudden you're in the software business, right?
Exactly.
And I'm not trying to make fun of you, right? Because obviously you already have users. We've already talked to people, you and I together, because we know some of the same people. And, I've tried to make sure you were introduced to some other folks. Mm-hmm. But I think for a lot of people, they go, I could never start a software company. Or whenever I talk at schools, I like to say they like to find a nerd in the wild and throw a saddle on them. Right?
Exactly.
Because they don't understand the process. They don't know that there's like a front end person and a middle person and a person who's handling your databases, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a security person and
Oh yeah, that's how I was when I started.
Right.
I mean, literally, I'm like, yeah, we'll just find somebody that can write some software and it'll be great.
As soon as you said somebody, you were wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't even get to the part where you even got to say software and you were already wrong. And that's kind of my point is everyone that sort of like hangs back is more right about how complex it's going to be than the people that we sort of lionize as like, oh, I love the fact that they just charged right in. And that's the thing that sucks is that there's like, you can be happy or you can be right. You can't pick both, right?
Right.
So you're working on the legal side of things and you say, this needs to be improved. Tell me what was the catalyst where you thought I could be the founder and CEO of Dorothy AI?
It was really meeting Mike Shamus, who's my co-founder.
Yeah.
He is a patent attorney and a professor at TMU.
Right.
In the Language Technology Institute.
Okay.
So actually we were kind of hooked up through the Pittsburgh Technology Council. He saw my ad in the back of one of the tech magazines.
Yeah.
And called me and just said, hey, we should get together. We
what
have
was
a lot
the
in
ad
common.
for specifically?
It was just an announcement saying, here's a new member. And that was after I started 310 Consulting.
Yeah, because that's a weird thing to be like, okay, I put an ad in tech right? They were just saying that you were there.
Yeah. It wasn't really an ad. It was just an announcement that these are our new members.
And for the people outside the area, Tech is the magazine that's actually put out by the Pittsburgh Technology Council. So there's a lot of information in there, especially there's a lot of new members in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's been a great way to just meet people. But anyway, Seamus says, we should get together. We have a lot in common. And I say, okay. So we get together and we trade war stories about, patent prosecution and experts and patent search and how there are problems. And he looked at the platform I was using and called it cute, which,
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike.
But then he says, we could do this a lot better. And he starts, giving me some ideas and that sort of thing. And I'm kind of like, yeah, this is a really good idea. But I'm kind of like, well, I'm still doing my thing here. Mm-hmm. And, well, it's kind of interesting. Randy Eager, one of our friends.
Mutual friend.
Yeah. I was talking to him and he said, why don't you put that on the front? Because I was kind of putting that on the back burner, using my legal practice to kind of pay for development and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's like, you should just put that in the front. You'll never have more value than you do right now. Because nobody knows what's going to happen.
Right. No, I get that. I think so. I once took one of these like personality assessment type packages when I worked for a giant company really early in my career, telecom company, and they laid a lot of people off. And one of the supposed benefits was that they were going to give you this personality assessment once it, so that you could find what you were going to do next, which, if you're reading between the lines, is we just laid off a bunch of you, and there's no way you're all going to stay in the industry because we just glutted the market, right? They gave us a test to determine how comfortable we were as individuals with risk.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a 0 to 70 scale, and I scored a 69. I'm not joking, right? Like you just may as well round up. Like, like no. There's, on average, 1 out of 70 people that's a little bit more risk friendly. Just give me the last point.
Yeah.
So first question is, on the 0 to 70, where do you put yourself?
I'm pretty high.
Yeah, it feels like, right?
Right.
And then the second question is, I get it. You meet Mike, you have somebody telling you good things. You meet Randy, and Randy's telling you good things. But at some point, you decide to become the lawyer in the software business.
Right. And
that is still, still a leap. And I'm not trying to take a shot at you. I'm trying to help people who are risk averse to think the way you and I do.
Yeah. No, and I mean, the truth of the matter is, the way I looked at it is, okay, here's this thing. I have enough background with, startups where I think I can make the right decision at most of the decision points.
You're looking at this. Do you think being a patent attorney actually gave you insight as to like how many things succeed and fail, and you felt like you liked the odds, or you felt like maybe you knew some of the places that you could go to for some help? Like, what was it that at least made you think that you weren't just flushing your money down the toilet?
Well, a lot of it is my connection in the patent world. Yeah. Just knowing a lot of patent lawyers and a lot of patent agents who do this kind of work, and realizing that I could get good information out of them. Yeah. Because I think that's where really a lot of the products fail, is you don't get close enough to your customer, right, to understand what the real problem is. Especially, if I may, there's a lot of people who come from where you're coming from. They personally experience the problem, and they substitute that for 100% of customer discovery, for 100% of all of the product market fit. They just go, well, it serves me and I'm representative. And that's a 75 on the scale. That's you get bonus points for that level of risk. You're like, you know what? No, I'm an N of 1, and that's fine. Yeah, no, I know enough about statistics that's not a good idea. That is not a good idea. Well, and I know myself. I don't do things the same way as everybody else. No, you don't. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't a big problem. It turns out when I talk to people, it's a problem for everybody. But yeah. I can't say that I've known you a long time. You and I first met at the Subtle Beauty launch party back, that's right, I'm going to say 6-8 months ago. Yeah. But one of the things that strikes me is that you've got this, as an asset, you've got an affable personality. You're willing to work with people and sort of do discovery and not treat it like a root canal. Yeah. I actually like it. Yeah. I kind of get that feeling from you, that finding out what the customer wants to hear from you is really something you enjoy doing. Yeah, like just learning about how people practice their craft. Yeah.
how long have you actually been going to market now with a product that you're asking people to pay for?
Well, we're still building the user interface.
Okay.
It's taken a lot longer
But
than we
you do have
originally thought.
users. Like you've got people that are betaing for you, right?
Well, they're not. We had a prototype that some people betaed for a couple of months from I guess about September to November.
Got it.
But it was very limited. It only worked with tech patents, and it just returned results. And there were some other things kind of there that really didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was a student prototype. So
yeah, of course.
But we had to shut that down in order to work on the user interface.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two back ends, and everything's all crazy, and I don't understand any of it.
Yeah,
But,
and that's one of the dangers, right? Is again, you'd like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Know why you're doing what you're doing, and a little bit of troubleshooting figures in here too. Don't change more than one thing at once. So that's the process you're in right now.
Yeah,
which actually makes me really happy because I want to talk to you about the pitch that you're going to use for Dorothy. I'm going to say some things to you, and I need you just to tell me whether or not my gut is right, so that when I start talking to you about your pitch, I'm not fixing a problem that you don't actually experience. Right?
Okay.
So. As you're doing customer discovery, do you ever get the sense that people want to encourage you, but don't think that they're going to buy? Do you get that? Like, oh, that's cool, but you don't feel like a buy-in from them.
Yeah, that happens almost every time.
Yeah, we'll get back to why I think that is in a minute.
Okay.
When you talk to people, how often are they talking to you about price point without you bringing it up? Is it 0% of the time? Is it 50% of the time? Is it somewhere in between?
I'd say it probably comes up about 20 or 30%.
Okay.
So relatively low.
And then when you're doing customer discovery and when you're going through things, do you get to a point where people take over the conversation and start telling you the rest of the story? Like it almost feels like you start it and then they finish it, or are you kind of having to walk them through the whole thing?
The way I do customer discovery is I just let people talk.
Yeah.
Like I ask them about, a project they're working on.
Right.
Or they'll bring up, hey, I was working on this project. I'm like, oh, did you do searching with that?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh yeah. And then most patent attorneys, it's really hard to get time with attorneys in general.
Yeah,
so
of
a
course.
lot of my customer discovery has occurred during happy hours and things like that, where people are
accessible.
Yeah. And I mean, they're relaxed. So they'll tell you the story. So when they get to that point, you ask them the story about how it went, and they'll tell you about their foreign searcher, or, how they had an associate do the search and it was completely screwed up. And then they spent all day on Saturday, reperforming the search, and they've been reading these patents that don't mean anything for the last week.
I'm going to blow you up, right? Because what you're saying is actually the answer I was looking for, right? The fact that you can lay back and let them talk is actually the answer I was looking for.
Oh.
Sometimes it's dental extraction. Sometimes you get this confused look where it's like, I don't know what you want to know, or I don't know what you think is relevant. And it's this very staccato sort of a feel where you keep having to intervene.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like you're experiencing that. So generally, just from those little things, I think, and understand nothing's ever done, right? Like everything's an iterative process. The product's an iterative process. The pitch is an iterative process, all of it, right? But what I'm most afraid of for you is the idea that I hit on with the first question, which is, this is great for somebody else. and a lot of us who have done innovation products have been through this, where you can sit there and there's this idea, I use it all the time. It's called a step close, right? A step close works basically like, we'll give you an easy one that relates to your product. It'll probably be a little bit wrong. You spend 40 hours a month on patent search is what you told me, right, Curt? You say yes.
Yes.
Then I say, it's probably one of the more expensive things you're doing when you look at those hours and what you're paying for them, right? And then you think of 40 times whatever the rate is that you're paying that person, and you then say again, yes. And this is a step close. Like, I'm working you through a logical pattern where we can agree on how decisions are made. Right? That's all great, except when you're in this place, you'll go all the way through the steps and then they blank on you. because it's still like, yeah, but it's still not for me. And you're like, I just told you why it is. Like, you literally said yes to everything. And I'm not even doing that sleazy thing where it's like, like a shell game where I'm tricking you into saying yes on stuff. Law firms tend to gravitate towards certain archetypes, certain types of identities. And people that have listened to this show have heard me say this 1,000 times, where it's like every sale is about identity. Does a person like me buy something like this? And that's why there are law firms that will advertise on the back of the yellow pages, and there are law firms that will not. There are law firms that will do cool tech stuff, and there are law firms that will not.
Right.
You've got to build a bridge on identity early, right? And I don't think that talking about AI in any way, even though AI is not that complicated, it sounds super complicated. People think that's a futuristic thing, and it's not for me. That's for, like, if the old school law firms are old money, that's a new money thing. That's like, what somebody does when they're desperate, and I don't, we're a venerable old firm. Right. So we got to get around that, right?
Well, we have some ways of getting around that too. So I've taken kind of a holistic approach to the whole problem, right? Mm-hmm. So the searching is definitely part of the problem, but there are other parts of the problem. Saving searches, saving search results, sending things to the client, all issues that firms are going to need to address at some point. So we're addressing that with Dorothy. So my customer discovery, we've learned that most patent attorneys still go to Google Patents and Free Patents Online to do a lot of their searching.
Right.
And those are just easily accessible, free services. Mm-hmm. The problem is you can't save your searches.
Yeah.
So you end up, and I'm guilty of this, I'll have 20 different windows open in my Chrome because I have a bunch of different searches that I've done, and I don't want to get rid of them because you
might need them again.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're just there. And a lot of people have that problem. So what we're doing is we're saving everything in client-specific cards. Mm-hmm. If you perform a search, if you modify that search, if you perform another one on the same project, they all get saved in the same place. Yeah. So you can always come back and know exactly where it is. And all of that happens, it's all saved automatically.
Well, I want people to know faster than that, right? Your explanation is 100% germane to their problem. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you've only got like 10 seconds on the identity question. Yeah. The identity question happens super fast, right? I want you to think about some of the partners that you've met and worked with and known, and how many of them don't even have email. Yeah. Right? So you go in and you say I've got 15 Chrome tabs open, and you've already lost them because they don't know what Chrome is, Curt.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So we got to make this simpler. I think there's a research step that has to happen where you say, tell me how interested you are in time-saving devices, in labor-saving processes, right? And instead of saying that it's a technology play, you say that it's a labor-saving play, right? And instead of talking about anything that makes them feel like they're going first, which is what their real fear is about typically, nobody wants to go first. Nobody wants the nightmare scenario of I went first and look what happened to me, right? I'm the cautionary tale, the face of an entire industry. And they're all sure. There's certain places where you'll find that. Medical makes a great example. Like, no one in the medical field wants to go first. They want to advertise that they were first, but that's only after like someone told them it was 98% sure to work before anybody tried it. Yeah. Or some crazy patient was like, I don't care if I die from it. It's my only chance. Do it. And then they're like, we totally planned that. Right. We knew it was going to be a success. Meanwhile, think about it, right? Yeah. Case study that. So I come in the medical field. I come in and I say, I have a problem. And they say, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. MacTaggart, it's incurable. And I say, well, try everything. And they're like, well, that's not responsible. I guarantee you there's going to be a whole line of people trying to talk me out of doing this thing that they don't think is going to work, or at least they can't prove will work, if only from a risk management perspective and from like a, use of resources perspective. Like, there's a lot of different departments that are going to show up in that meeting to try to dissuade me from doing something that I have no downside on. They've already told me that I'm not going to survive. And I go, okay, well, let's try it anyway. And they go, we don't want to. And then somehow or another, probably with like a combination of, I don't know, expert opinions and a sack of cash, they agree to go ahead with this. They will take the credit after the fact. That's how you get people to move first, right?
Right.
So somebody who's willing, who has little to risk, is a really good person to talk to. Here's the problem with that. If I sell you the secret weapon, I don't expect you to go on TV and go, here's my secret weapon.
Right.
That's the problem with this strategy.
Right.
So I don't know. My gut tells me stay away from the tech part of the conversation and just focus on labor, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
I say in the first 10 seconds, you say, a lot of firms are trying to reduce the number of hours they spend on patent search, and with our tech, you'll reduce it by 80%.
Yeah.
Period.
No.
How's it work?
That. Yeah.
It's magic. I've got the identity problem in 10 seconds.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense.
I would love if you wouldn't mind checking back in with us like at some point just to tell us how that went when it comes time to start testing your language.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Because I want you to succeed. You're a great guy. I enjoy your company. I want this to go well for you. So it's you and it's Seamus. Who else is working on the team right now?
Jada Pass.
Okay.
He is a computer scientist from the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You lucked out there.
Yeah.
At what point did you feel like you could trust the CTO, right? Like it's not just, no. Because now your baby is in the hands of a non-lawyer. It's in a non-patent. And you've got this trust relationship where it's like, I know you know the tech, but you don't know anything about the problem, right? Like, how do I know you heard me is I guess what I'm asking you.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed working with Jay on is, well, one, I don't know the tech, so I need to be able to have somebody I can depend on.
I get that.
So that was one of the first things. I wanted to make sure that we had that kind of open relationship where I can explain what we need and he can say, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
The other thing that really made that connection, I think, was he wanted to do some customer discovery and really talk to people who were doing the work and using the tools.
That answers the question I'm driving at, right? Because the first part is finding the person that can work on the tech. And the second part is making sure that they understand garbage in, garbage out, right? You go in and you tell them something that's the problem. And then what comes out isn't a solution to the problem. It's on you, but the money's spent. Like,
yeah.
You can fix it, but it's more money now. Where is this whole train going eventually? A lot of times when you start talking to investors and whatnot, they want to know what your exit strategy is.
Right.
Now, I know that it's customary to say, like, oh, well, we'll get really big and then we'll go IPO or we'll sell to a bigger fish. Like, it's like, I swear to God, it's like the amen at the end of the prayer. You have to say it every single time.
Right.
But legitimately, where would you like to see this thing go?
I would like to build our expertise at searching in the tech area and then move into academics and R&D.
Yeah.
So then we have a more holistic search tool
that
will be marketable to any information company, a Thomson Reuters, for example, to get out of specifically the legal field.
Yeah. Yeah. You solve one problem and then you realize that there's other problems that are adjacent to it.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah. And this is a big problem for everybody. I mean, if you go to Pitt and talk to a biochemical researcher, they're going to tell you about how much time they spend going through, lists and lists of academic journal articles and other things that don't mean anything to them because they have to do that to get to the thing that does.
And while I was kind of downplaying the AI and machine learning aspects of it when we were talking about pitching, right? It's important to point out what you're really doing is you're taming a lot of different potential offshoots of a logical discussion, right?
Right.
Like, you're basically taking complexity and you're saying like, well, normally I would have to check every one of these potential pathways. And instead I'm having the computer pre-programmed to check every one of those potential outcomes for me. And when you start looking at that, that's where AI plays start to make sense. Is a person such as yourself who understands 15 tabs open on your browser and goes, okay, here's how I've always done this. Here's how it translates to paper. Hey, software person, can you make this paper into a program and just basically follow these rules over and over again? And now all of a sudden you've got opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be, from your perspective, granted, in businesses, 2 years is really short, but it's got to be pretty close, right? Like once you get patents down and you've actually got paying customers and whatnot, you'll be able to move into those pretty quickly. My question is, how quickly can you scale the sales side of it so that you can actually support that? That seems to be the $1 million question, right?
That is the $1 million question. And I don't know what the answer to that is.
Because from the tech side, it feels like you can translate right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but we need to train the model. Well, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to go after, patent lawyers first.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, these are very rigorous users of search technology.
Right.
So they're going to use it hard and tell me when they have a problem.
That's cool.
If you go into academics, I feel like you'd have a lot of people just using it and, it works sometimes and works not. But, if they're paying for it and it's not working, I'm going to get a call.
Yeah, they're not going to be as interested in holding you accountable in academics as they will in the legal field. I completely feel that. But I do think you got to kind of spool up real quick on the sales side.
Yeah.
Right? And prime that pump. And
I'm working on it.
I can tell by your face I just freaked you out. And I didn't mean to, right? I'm not trying to stress you out.
Well, I mean, this is something I've been really working on for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Is trying to figure out how to do that. I mean, what are my channels? Mm-hmm. How do I get to those people? And how do I move up the chain to the decision makers?
Yeah. For this, it doesn't sound like there's any reason for you to need to do stand-ups for individual customers, right? It's basically like a onboard by automation, right? I'm MacTaggart Law. I decide that I want your product. I go to a self-service window on DorothyAI.com, and they're like, okay, what's your credit card number? Bang, done, right? Okay, here's our automated training process. Done, right? The less I need an account manager and a training manager and an onboarding manager and a customer success manager, the faster I can scale.
Right.
Now, whether or not adoption can be driven that way, we'll see. I would love to believe that you can because it solves a problem. But you still end up with like that front end marketing piece where people have to even know that it exists first.
Right.
Right. And that, I don't know, friend to friend, here's how I would do it, right? I'd be looking at PR and I'd be looking at conferences and other places where you can get in front of the people that are right now thirsty for new information. That's why PR works, is because you read a newspaper to find new stuff. You read a magazine to find out things you didn't know before you read the magazine. That's why it's a lot like search. You're finding people at the right moment.
Right.
When you do search advertising or whatever, you're finding people at the time when they're looking for your stuff, or at least, even if they don't know what your stuff is, they know what problem they're trying to solve. And PR works much the same way. It's like, well, you're catching a person at a time when they're willing to absorb new information.
Yeah.
So I think you have to make the PR, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the other thing, which is the thought leadership force multiplier argument, right? Where how do you get that follow-on business? So Curt is a leader in Missouri, and 20 people listen to what Curt says at the local bar association meetings for IP, right? And you go, okay, well, Curt says he's working with this Dorothy thing, so let's do that, right? That, I think, is conferences.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an article sharing kind of of a room.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about people who pride themselves on how many billable hours they do, or maybe not pride themselves, but feel pressure to produce as many billable hours as possible. Right. I don't think there's a whole lot of like, let's read for work, right? It's like, no, get me away from this.
Right. No, and I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
So I'm spending a lot of time trying to set Dorothy AI up as the kind of gatekeeper for AI information and legal tech.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important. One of the things that's really difficult is that people just don't understand it, and they think it's like some super, AI is these robots, and
right,
the Terminator and all this stuff, and it's really not.
There's a little bit of that for real, yeah. And I think that plays into the why they think they could take a wait and see attitude, and you got to kill that.
Yeah. No, and I'm like, it's like, look, you don't have to wait and see. These are just tools.
Yeah, they are just tools.
Yeah.
But even then, people don't want, and this isn't mine, I'm stealing this. You've probably heard it before, right? People don't want to buy a drill. They just want holes.
Yeah.
So you got to talk about the holes.
That's a good point. Yeah.
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 So for what it's worth, I think PR is going to be a huge opportunity for you, but you have to play it right. You have to understand what channels and then who are you going to reach through that PR.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a trickle down effect. You got to hit the right people, not just assume that everybody's reading, say, I don't know, like a local trade publication that they actually throw away. It doesn't matter how many they circulate.
Right.
It matters how many get read.
Yeah.
And by whom.
Right.
So from a strategic perspective, that's going to be a key question to answer.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's a lot of what I've been thinking about is how to do that. Because I've never had to do that sort of thing before. Everything that I've built from a patent lawyer perspective is based on interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
Like you meet somebody, they tell somebody else, they tell somebody else, and it kind of moves that way.
And
but
that feels
that's
great.
A very slow process.
Yeah, but that feels great because it's a safe process too.
Yeah.
Right? Like no one feels as though they're like a shotgun wedding, right? You don't have to work with somebody. There's no urgency. It's not like criminal law where it's like, oh God, I've got to pick somebody right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone says, well, who does Google use? And whatever the answer to that question is money in the bank.
Yeah.
For that person.
Right.
There's very much you are who you run with kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we use the same people as Google. Someone is saying that right now as we record.
You're absolutely right.
I'm so proud. We use the same firm that Google uses.
And it makes me crazy.
Yeah. Well, but it's right.
Yeah, well,
It's the way humans are wired.
No, it is definitely the way humans are wired. Whether or not that's the right choice for that particular client, I don't know.
Well, how about this? When I say it's right, what I mean is it's the right way for you to be thinking about the sales and marketing thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's you have to be thinking in terms of what is the thing someone will be proud to say to a colleague because it's going to rely on a certain degree of that.
Yeah.
Your word of mouth thing isn't going away. It's just happening on a much larger scale from here on out. What you're going to do is you're going to plant 1,000 seeds just in the US, and then that's going to be word of mouth from there. And they're not even ever going to know Curt's name, right? They're going to know Dorothy.
That's fine with me.
All right. I would like to have you come back after this thing's on the market and,
I'd be happy to come back.
That'd be awesome. I want to hear what happens afterwards, right?
Right.
I'm really encouraged by like some of the things I've heard from people that are in the same field that are, putting hands on it and checking things out and they're aware of it. And I mean, you and I both know some of the patent attorneys and IP folks that are in the space, and they're watching to see when you're ready for them. So that's a good sign. We just need to now scale that same feeling to a broader audience and see where it takes us.
Right.
Curt, I'm looking forward to it.
I am too.
Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the show. Thanks to Curt and everybody over at Dorothy AI. You can find out more about their project at dorothyai.com. I am really looking forward to what the future holds for Curt and his team. That'll be some cool stuff. Next week, Buzzy and I are going to be back in the studio putting another one of these out for you. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That'll make it so that you get the show before everybody else, and you'll have bragging rights in your little neck of the woods. Take care of yourselves in the meantime. We'll catch you on Wednesday.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and MacTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.